that. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the two gentlemen that are holding it down. For our high school, we have Mr. Tyler Jones, and for the middle school, we have Mr. Sherman Logan. I'm going to turn my camera off. These gentlemen are going to wow you. So we appreciate Jack telling us about re-enrollment, but what are we doing with your babies while they're here? What does testing look and feel like? And how can we set them up to end the year strong? All of those things will be gone over in the process. Additionally, we have our high school principal, Mr. Neelish Patel, here with us. So if you have any questions, y'all can pop them in the chat. But I know that it's been a long day, and I know these gentlemen are excited to share with you about our testing plan. So gentlemen, take it away.
So I think both of us will admit we are not big on talking. I think even, I am the director of curriculum at the high school. Sherman is the director of curriculum instruction at the middle school, specifically for 8th grade, correct, Sherman? That is correct. Cool. Jump in, cut me off whenever you want, but we are also the testing coordinators for our respective schools. So we are here to talk to folks about end of year assessment. And when we refer to end of year assessments, in this case, we are specifically shouting out the MAP, which will happen at the middle school level, and then the EOC, so end of course exams, which will happen at the high school level. And that will be between 5/8 all the way to end of cycle at 5/19, though hopefully those will only be makeups at that point.
Yep. So tonight we're going to go through the overview. Why do we take the MAP and why does the EOC matter? What do the tests look like? And we're going to go through our testing plan. What are the day-to-day logistics and how it'll run here at Kairos? We're going to then follow up with some resources and some tips. So how can you best support your students? And then wrap it up with some questions and any queries or concerns that you may have about the MAP testing or the EOC assessments for middle school and high school.
I think there is this reality, especially coming from a high school background, that tests are a part of life. We've got 15 and 16-year-olds who, for better or worse, are currently taking their driver's permit test. Certainly when they are juniors, they'll be taking the ACT, they might be taking the SAT. And then as they get out into the wider world, you've got the LSAT, you've got the MCAT, you've got boards, you've got bars. The reality is that so many of the best things in life, unfortunately, for better or worse, are preceded by a pretty high stress test. The MAP and the EOC are not the be all end all. In no way, shape, or form should anyone judge themselves solely by the number they get back on that test, but they are definitely an excellent chance to kind of like be a part of this process and to get some practice in. So for a lot of kids, this might be one of the first like really critical kind of high pressure tests that they are taking. And then we'd be remiss not to acknowledge the reality, for better or worse, we've all seen the Post-Dispatch write about schools. The reality is that, both students and Kairos as a whole will ultimately, there will be reporting on our performance. So in the sense that we want to bring our best selves to the rest of the state, the MAP and the EOC are really the first chance to do that, because they will be kind of a comparison amongst other schools.
You did a great job, Tyler, but I just reiterate the fact that this is an opportunity for our scholars to really just show out for everything that they have learned this year. And like Tyler said, this is just going to continue to prepare them for other testing that they're going to be exposed to later on down in life.
I hate to start with acronyms because that feels kind of like it doesn't feel irrelevant coming right after the why, but it feels very quick. But I know we're going to throw a lot of like shorthand terms at you. And so I didn't want us to just start throwing that without kind of some background. So if you hear any references to DESE, that is the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It is, for all intents and purposes, kind of like the body that governs all of education in Missouri. So DESE.mo.gov is going to be your source for information around a lot of this stuff. You will also hear probably a little bit less from us, but ultimately probably in the news, MSIP and APR. MSIP is the Missouri School Improvement Program, and then APR is kind of like the annual performance report. So there is a reality that this is kind of accountability data for us. And these are kind of like the programs under which that will show up. And then the two most important terms you will hear us refer to, MAP is broadly the Missouri Assessment Program, but it's also used a little bit more colloquially to refer to like the grade level assessments that K through 8th grade students will take. So MAP is going to be like the middle school version, and then EOCs are end of course exams. Those are going to be course specific. So if you take Algebra 1, you will take an Algebra 1 EOC. Those are primarily going to show up in the high school, but they are technically not limited to the high school. So you could have, for example, 8th graders taking an Algebra 1 EOC. The tests do have a lot of similarities, and that's actually kind of nice. So if students have taken the MAP in middle school, then they will not be super unfamiliar when they get to the EOCs in high school. They are both going to be computer-based. So we would ask, just please make sure students don't show up with Chromebooks fully charged. That is critical. They won't lose their test, but it's very frustrating for kids to watch their computer, if they've got a ton of momentum and their computer dies because they can't see their battery. So please just make sure they show up with a fully charged computer. Questions are a mixture of, and Sherman will actually do a much more eloquent job kind of explaining this later. So I'll let that list sit there, but broadly, it's a lot of multiple choice. And then on some select tests, there's going to be a performance event, which will take, like in English, for example, a performance event will take the form of an essay. On a math test, it might be like a more extended problem for which students have to show their work. And then we come to like the last kind of harshest similarity. The reality is that there are performance level descriptors. And so students, based on their scores, will be placed into certain buckets. Again, this is where I honestly say from the bottom of my heart that I don't want students to like label themselves based on a single test, but there is this reality that students are scored as either advanced, proficient, basic, or below basic. I would make the argument right off the bat, every single student, given the education experience they've had at Kairos, can score at least basic, and I would expect a decent number to score proficient and advanced. So that is our goal. Basic is the bottom line. We are not even considering below basic. And then proficient advanced, we'd love to see students do as well. I'm throwing this slide out quickly and I'll kind of gloss over it, but if anyone wants to come back to it and we have questions, I will not hesitate to. This was actually a slide that I presented to high schoolers, but it works very well for middle school as well. And what I wanted to do with the high schoolers was dispel this rumor that, Kairos' scores were particularly bad or something like that. That came up in the APR report, but it actually was not based on our test scores. There were like some minor complications. The reality is if you look at the math data from last year, so this is our 8th graders who are now 9th graders, you can see that on the advanced and proficient end, they actually outperformed the state. So you can see the averages for the state in red, and then you can see specific subgroups as well, and they significantly outperformed those subgroups. Really quickly, we talked about it. End of course exams are going to be the tests that high school students face. You will see I tried to bold the stuff that I think is particularly important. If you want additional information, there is a link at the bottom, and I believe we will share this deck out. But the key information, this year, freshmen will take Algebra 1. That will be 2 sessions. So they will take the multiple choice on one day. They will take the performance event on another day because we want to give them the space to do their best. And the only other EOC test that freshmen will take will be biology, and that is a single session. So any students who have been in algebra or have been in biology will see those as their EOC test. So on Tuesday, 5/9, we will start with Algebra 1. That will just be the first session. Wednesday, 5/10, we will take the second session of algebra and thus finish the Algebra 1 test. And then Thursday, we will do biology, which is just 1 session. So you'll see we'll have about a week leading in with EOC prep, finish testing, and then makeups will take place that last week of the cycle. And that's where, as the director of curriculum instruction, I would make super clear that grades will also close for us on that 5/19. So it is imperative that students have some foresight because they'll be juggling the need to get work done with the reality that testing will be stressful. So it would not be surprising if kids are a little bit stressed, but the more kind of foresight they have, the more they will then be able to slide in and enjoy that 5/22 break. So you will see with multiple exclamation points around it, 5/22 to 5/26 and beyond will be a break for students. So I think they have a 2-week break at that point. If you want like a basic overview of kind of like day of logistics, you can see a little snapshot. I actually pulled a performance event. So if you see a question to the right, that is a performance event. Long story short, students will get in at about 8:45. Well, they'll get to their testing room at 8:45. They'll report to school at the usual time, anywhere between 8 and 8:30. They'll get breakfast. We'll try to have them as mentally ready as they can be. They will report to the same room every single day. So they'll actually ideally be in a room with their mentors. So we wanted to keep that coach-mentor relationship and just give them a room that they'll feel mentally comfortable in. I cannot emphasize this enough. Tests are untimed, so if kids are focused and give their best effort, they will get their best score. They can take a break, they can get water, they can mentally reset, whatever the case may be. And then in the interest of not disrupting schedules too much, they will see all their content classes in the afternoon. That was something Sherman and I were super conscientious about. We don't want, teaching and learning to just stop in the afternoon. So we did rework the schedule such that they'll test in the morning and they'll still see content in the afternoon.
All right, well, thank you so much for that overview for the EOC for high school, Tyler. For middle school, we are working with our MAP assessments for grade level. So all scholars in the state of Missouri in grades 3 through 8 will take the MAP test. All scholars will take their English and their math tests. And then our scholars who are in 5th grade and 8th grade will also be assessed in science in those grade levels. And so, again, we just encourage our scholars to just show up and do their best. A lot of similarities to the EOC that we're going to see with our MAP assessments. All right, and so with the MAP assessments, they have different answer types or question types that you're going to see. The first one is going to be selective response, more formally known as the multiple choice. So just similar what scholars have seen previously. Constructive response, so this is where we're going to ask our scholars to provide a little bit more detail when explaining their answers. The performance task for ELA in 8th grade, they have a writing prompt that they're going to have to reply to. And then for math, they're going to have some different problems where they're going to have to extend their thinking and show the work to explain their reasoning and justify their answer. And then lastly, we're going to have technology enhanced items. And so this is where our students are going to be able to interact with the technology on the computer, being able to drag and drop and label different parts of the diagrams as they're able to provide their answers to those questions. And for our middle school MAP tests, and so as Tyler said, for high school, they just had the 2 tests that they have to worry about. Here in middle school, there's quite a lot of maneuvering that we had to do to try to get this into our 2 weeks. And so pretty much just a high level overview. We're going to do our reading sessions on our first 3 days of testing starting on May the 8th. With that 4th session, that's for 8th grade only. That's where they're going to be doing their writing prompt. So they're going to have 2 sessions that day. And then we're going to move over into our math sessions to close out the week and then finishing up on the week starting of the 15th. And then our 5th and 8th graders, they are going to take their science tests on Tuesday and Wednesday. We're also going to be able to start the makeup testing for our 6th and 7th grade scholars that day as well. And then be able to finish out the week, the Thursday and the Friday, the last day of the cycle with all other makeup testing. And like Tyler said, hopefully we don't have to have too many makeup testing on the 19th, because that is the end of the cycle. That is when all of our scholars are going to be working to finish up all their projects and PFAs from Summit that is in cycle 6. And then similar overview, Tyler and I, we worked hand to hand, making sure we had as much alignment with the middle school and the high school. So again, scholars, they will report to school at the same time. They'll go to the same testing room every single day. They'll arrive in their testing room at about 8:20. And once they're in their space, the teachers of that room will get the scholars settled down, making sure that everyone had a chance to eat their breakfast, get them ready to take their tests, and start giving out the materials and instructions right around 9 o'clock. And then every day we're going to have that 2-hour testing window because, like Tyler said, with the EOC, our grade level assessments, they're untimed too. And we want to make sure that we're giving the scholars space to make sure that they are able to take their time, read through each question carefully, and take any breaks that they need so that they can perform their best at their level. And then after their testing, our scholars will be able to see their content area teachers every single day. It's going to be on a rotating schedule where they have the opportunity to see teachers throughout the week to make it more equitable for all of our teachers and for all of our scholars, just to make sure that they have the opportunity to view their material for the summer courses as well. And then during this time in this afternoon sessions, this is the opportunity for our scholars to get caught up and complete any of the projects that they have for cycle 6 and any of those PFAs as the cycle is going to end. And then just like Tyler linked, we have a link in here for what the practice items for the MAP test. And so once you get this deck shared out with you, you can definitely go practice these items with your scholars at home.
We have tried not to put multiple sessions on any day. The goal is, with sessions being on time, we want to give kids the best chance they can to put their best foot forward. But really quickly, like if you need kind of like a mental heuristic, I guess, is that the word? As you think like MAP versus EOC. So really quickly, like MAP is obviously MAP is the K-8 test. EOC is going to be course specific and it'll be primarily high school. But there definitely are some similarities. The reality is that, and again, I hate to come back to these labels, but students will be scored accordingly, advanced, proficient, basic, and below basic. All of the testing will take place. So for both campuses, all testing will take place between 5/8 and 5/19. And then the data will ultimately reflect in our school accountability data, so in the annual performance review. So we are hoping that students, show up and show out, and take everything that they've learned this year and put their best foot forward.
Now, as we are preparing for our tests coming up in a couple of weeks, we just want to make sure that we are sharing some things that you all as family members can support your scholars and some test taking tips and strategies. First thing is to just go ahead and start having those conversations with your scholars and letting them know that testing is coming up, making sure that they continue to prepare every single day and ready to take their MAP or EOC test. Also, just a reminder, like we don't want the kiddos to just think they have to cram the night before, because that's going to be highly unproductive for them. Also, encourage our scholars to get a good night's sleep every single night before they come in and take a test, because they need to make sure they're refreshed and have a good mind to take their assessments. And then also ensure that the scholars are eating breakfast before they arrive at school, or make sure they're coming to school early enough to eat breakfast here at school before they get into their testing rooms. Next up, we have some strategies to help manage with test taking anxiety. This is real for a lot of our students here at Kairos and across the nation. And just these high stake tests, they can bring a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress for our scholars, knowing that they do weigh a lot on our scholars' future. So to help our scholars with these test taking anxieties and some of these stressors, some of the things that we have just listed on here, one is just some deep breathing exercises, helping them to control their breath and their heart rate to get the more oxygen flowing to their brain. Muscle relaxation, just making sure that they're nice and loose and not all tensed up when they're trying to take the test. The 3-3-3 rule is just being able to look around the room, seeing 3 objects that you can see, name the sounds that you can hear, and then the parts of the body that you feel. Again, just ways to just take your mind off the test and just focus your energy on something else to help calm you down so that when you're ready to get back into your test, you have a clear mind. And then also to just sit or stand up straight just helps protect that posture, helps release some of that stress and some of those stressful situations.
And as I mentioned, my son also goes to Kairos, and so he is right alongside all of your children as they get ready for testing. Another thing that we do is we just talk about the test, right? So I think dinner table conversations are great. Ask them how they feel as far as preparation after the test. Say, hey, was anything, did anything boggle them? Did they have a good time, or did they enjoy the test? Or was there anything that really confused them? So I think just open communication is just another great thing to make the child know that you're on their side, you understand it, you're there to support, you're there to talk through big or small things to make sure that they don't have any testing anxiety.
Yes, absolutely. We definitely encourage those conversations that happen frequently and often, just to communicate with our scholars, just to see what they're feeling and how we can support them along the way. Some other test taking tips that you can work with your scholars on. So we're going to focus on multiple choice questions first. So just making sure that we are able to read the test item and understand what the question is actually asking our scholars. But being able to do that, we underline the important words and pick up that key information. Then be able to restate the question in your own words, just being able to paraphrase it so that they can understand it themselves. Then read through all the test items, including all the answer choices, so that they're knowing, okay, here's the question, here are the possible choices that I can choose from for my answer selection, and being able to analyze the correct answer choices as they are going through. And then always checking your answer with the context of the problem. Just don't go and just make that selection, go back and check your work. And if you need to, if a problem is really giving you a lot of challenges or a reading passage is really long, take a break, come back to it. It is an untimed test, and we want to make sure that the scholars feel really comfortable before submitting that answer. And for our multiple response questions, this is where we can have 2 or more correct answers. And so just making sure that our scholars are able to identify some of those phrases that are going to signal like, hey, this is a multiple response type of question. I'm going to have 2 or more answer choices that I need to be able to choose from. And so similar to what our multiple choice questions are, making sure that we are reading and understanding the question, paraphrasing in our own word, underlining those key important information, and then looking out for some of those key terms. Ones are like, hey, select 3 correct answers, things like that, and those statements that are going to identify like, all right, I need to choose more than one answer for this particular question. And then for our constructive response or open response, and this is where we want to make sure that our scholars are able to answer every part of the question. And so for our writing prompt for our 8th grade, making sure that we clearly answer all the parts of the question that's being asked for the scholars to reflect on. And then for our math questions, making sure 1, we are able to show all of our work, and then 2, answer all the questions that they're asking on the test to justify our answers. Make sure that the answers are structured and the steps are easily followed, and then make sure that we are using our complete sentences so that the ideas are clear and able to be read. So that is what we have for our MAP testing for our middle school and our EOC testing for our high school. We'll open up the floor right now if there are any questions that you all may have.
And we will also, I know if the video goes out more broadly, our contact info is on the next slide, so I'll make sure to show that. So if anybody has a question, but doesn't necessarily want to voice it out loud right now, or even a question comes to you later, our contact info will be, well, it'll be right here.
There you go. I was going to say, go ahead and let's show it. And I want to be mindful of the time. I definitely appreciate the extra time that you have put into it and all the thoughtfulness and love and care that has gone into planning this for our scholars. I want to say thank you to all the parents that popped on. We know that this is a busy time, but again, parents are our partners. And the more you stay in the know, the better you are able to support your scholar, and we're able to make sure that that communication gap doesn't exist. So if no one has any other questions, we will definitely, like I said, we'll share the video, we'll make ourselves available. But I just want to say thank you to everyone. I know y'all are busy, everyone has families, we got to get home and cook. So if no one has anything else, we will go ahead and close out and say thank you for your time.